Well, we'll still stay with the city because its depreciation, as we have heard in this particular interview, is expected to hit hard on prices of goods and services, including fuel. As we enter March 2022, the Institute of Energy Security, IES, projects another rise in the price of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, diesel and petrol at the pump. The impending price increase has been largely influenced by the sharp depreciation of the cedi against the dollar. Other factors include the 3.33% increase in the price of Brent crude and the 2.71% rise in LPG price, as well as a 3.58% increase in the price of gas oil. All the international oil and fuel markets are also having reds in terms of their price hikes. Nana Moesu VII is Executive Director of the IES, and he joins us via Zoom for more. We're grateful that you could join us. I know the IES based its parameters, among other factors, on the global hike in crude, of course, the free fall of the cedi, and even the Russia-Ukraine crisis. But tell us what other signals government may be missing out on when it comes to rising fuel prices.
But I think that you have recounted all the major determinants of what will drive fuel prices up come the next window, and that has been the value of the cedi against the US dollar, then also prices from the international market with respect to fuel price and crude oil prices. One thing that can also change the dynamics is the levies and taxes on this fuel. If government reduce the taxes or the levies on the price build-up, it will change the direction of fuel in favor of consumers. If they decide to hike it for revenue purposes, then of course we're going to see an escalation in price beyond the forex exposure and the international price exposure.
You know, if you could recall, we've had a similar conversation, you know, as this one, of course, related to global trends. Today we're having the Russia-Ukraine crisis, which of course has disrupted, you know, global trends in terms of the finance and marketing of, you know, economies world over. How can this, should it protract, help deepen the woes of fuel prices on the global market?
Well, the rift between Ukraine and Russia, as you've come to see, is coming with some sanctions against Russia. And if this sanction, is sustained, what is going to happen is that Russia will not be able to supply the world, and particularly Europe, the needed fuel, and that will batter on price because supply of these essential commodities will be squeezed. And note that Russia supplies more than 30% of the oil needs for Europeans, and is a major player in the world market in terms of oil supply. And beyond the sanction, if this war or battle between the two goes to hit any section of the logistics, let's say a pipeline, a key pipeline, then of course supply will be more squeezed. And we are also seeing today that when you go to the Suez Canal in Egypt, authorities there are planning to increase tariff at the canal. That will also batter on freight costs. So beyond the geopolitics, there are other indicators, including freight and logistics costs, that will also see price of international price go up. And note one thing: demand is still surging, and production has been hampered because of low investment across the globe.
So what now? What now? Because we do know that transport fares have also increased by 15%. And of course, so many passengers, Ghanaians, are feeling the pinch in their pockets. How can government absorb consumers from this trend? You've stated removal of taxes and levies, but going beyond that, how can consumers be cushioned against this global trend?
Well, the fuel price surge comes along with inflationary pressures, like you've mentioned, transportation, food, cost of other services, and production. If you look at Kenya and Egypt, they didn't only suspend the stabilization levy, but they went deep into the stabilization fund to cushion consumers. So it won't be enough to suspend a levy or take away a tax. But then we can look at the price stabilization and recovery fund to cushion consumers. And also, because we are oil exporting country, we are getting a windfall from our crude oil sale.
Exactly.
From $61.23 per barrel projected, we are seeing oil price on the world market surge beyond $95. You see a clear windfall of profit for government. Maybe government want to use that to compensate consumers by removing or suspending some of the taxes. This is for the short term, but in the long term, we must be able to manage that forex exposure as well as the international price exposure using the bus and toll system to bring consumers relief in the long term.